My delusional boss thought he owned me. He actually thought that paying me $5 an hour gave him the right to control every single second of my life. He mocked me for living with my parents, calling me pathetic, while he played businessman with his daddy's money. He fired me just for trying to survive, leaving me scrambling to pay my tuition. But he didn't know that karma has a funny way of circling back. He thought he was untouchable, the ultimate golden child of the business world. But 10 years later, I didn't just watch his business fail, I watched his entire life implode. I'm talking federal fines, a brutal divorce in family court, and a total liquidation of his assets. Watching him instantly regret crossing me and his other employees wasn't just satisfying, it was delicious. Here is how a tyrant lost everything and how I ended up on top. Let's rewind to the early 2000s. I was 18, female, and living in New York City. If you know anything about NYC, you know that breathing the air costs money. My parents were amazing, hardworking people, but we were broke. Not skip a vacation broke, I mean check the couch cushions for subway fare broke. I had just started college, and the financial anxiety was a constant heavy weight in my chest. I had scholarships and grants, but they didn't cover everything. I needed cash for textbooks, food, and eventually to move out. Enter my boss. Let's call him EB for entitled boss. EB was 37, but he acted like a spoiled teenager. He was the definition of someone born on third base who thought he hit a triple. His father had paid for his college, paid for his car, and eventually handed him the capital to start this convenience store franchise. It was basically a 7-Eleven knockoff. EB loved to lecture us about hard work. He would lean against the counter wearing a watch that cost more than my tuition and say, "I built this from the ground up. You millennials just don't have the grit." The irony. He was paying us $5 an hour. Even back then, that was illegal. It was under the table below minimum wage and frankly exploitative. But I didn't say a word. I couldn't. I was desperate. When you're poor, you swallow your pride because you can't eat dignity. EB was a tyrant. He timed our bathroom breaks with a stopwatch. I'm not exaggerating. If you were in there for more than 3 minutes, he'd be banging on the door screaming, "I'm docking, your pay time is money." He created an environment of pure fear. But the moment I knew he was truly evil was the incident with my coworker Sarah. Sarah was a sweet girl, quiet, hardworking. One Tuesday she came in with red puffy eyes. Her grandmother, who had practically raised her, had passed away that morning. She asked EB for one single day off to attend the funeral on Friday. I watched EB scoff, rolling his eyes as if she had asked for $1 million. "Why are you crying?" he sneered, not even looking up from his clipboard. "Your grandma was old. People die. Get over it." Sarah's lip trembled. "Please, I just need Friday to say goodbye." EB slammed his hand on the counter, making us all jump. "When my grandparents died, I didn't take a day off, I worked. That's what successful people do. You kids are too sensitive. The real world isn't going to coddle you, sweetheart. You take Friday off, don't bother coming back on Saturday. One day or you're fired." The silence in the store was deafening. I felt my stomach churn. Sarah looked at him, wiped her tears, unpinned her name badge, and threw it right at his face. She walked out. She was brave. I unfortunately couldn't afford to be brave yet. I stayed, and that was my mistake. Because EB was paying me slave wages, I couldn't make ends meet. $5 an hour in New York is a joke. I was drowning, so I hustled. I found a second job at a small family-owned craft store in my neighborhood. The owner, let's call her NB for nice boss, was an angel. She paid me $6.50 an hour, treated me like a human being, and understood I was a student. I worked there in the evenings, ensuring it never conflicted with my shifts at EB's store. I kept this a total secret. I knew EB was possessive and delusional. He viewed his employees as his property. If he knew I had another source of income, he'd lose his leverage over me. But secrets in a small neighborhood don't last long. One afternoon, I was stocking shelves at EB's store. A regular customer, a nice older lady who shopped at both stores, walked in. She saw me and smiled. "Oh, honey, I saw you working at the craft store last night. You were so helpful with that yarn selection. You are such a hard worker holding down 2 jobs at your age." My blood ran cold. I froze a can of soup in my hand and slowly looked toward the office. The door was open. EB was sitting there. He heard everything. The customer left and the atmosphere shifted instantly. The air felt heavy. My heart started hammering against my ribs, thump, thump, thump. I broke out in a cold sweat. I knew what was coming. "OP office, now." I walked into his office. It smelled like stale coffee and arrogance. He didn't offer me a seat. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. "You're working for that craft store?" "Yes," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "It's just evening hours. It doesn't conflict with my schedule here." EB's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. He stood up and got right in my face. "You are ungrateful," he spat. "I give you a job, I give you hours, and you go and split your loyalty. I need you available. What if someone calls out? What if I need you to cover a shift? I'm available the days you scheduled me," I argued, trying to keep my composure. "But I need the money. You pay me $5 an hour. I can't pay my tuition on that." He laughed, a cruel, mocking laugh. "Don't you live with your parents?" he sneered, looking me up and down with disgust. "God, that is pathetic. You're 18. When I was your age, I already had my first home. I was paying a mortgage. I was building an empire. And here you are, leeching off your mommy and daddy, crying about expenses. You don't have expenses. You're just greedy." The rage I felt in that moment was white hot. He had a mortgage at 18. Yeah, because his dad paid the down payment. "So here's the deal," EB said, leaning back and crossing his arms. "You act like an adult or you get out. You quit that craft store today. You commit to this company 100%, or you're fired." "Are you going to give me a raise?" I asked, my voice getting louder. "Will you match the pay? Will you guarantee me 40 hours a week? I'm not giving you a damn thing except the privilege of working here," he shouted. "So you either quit that side gig, or you get the hell out of my store." I looked at him. I thought about my tuition. I thought about the abuse. I thought about Sarah. "No," I said firmly. "I will not quit. I have bills to pay." He looked shocked that I defied him. "Then get out. You're fired. And don't think you're getting a reference." I walked out of there shaking, terrified for my future. But that firing was the best thing that ever happened to me. I went full-time with my niece boss at the craft store. When I told her what happened, she was horrified. She not only increased my hours, but she also helped me network. She became a mentor to me. I finished college, went to culinary school, and became a pastry chef. I moved on. I thrived. But the universe kept a scorecard. 10 years later. I was 28, living in my own apartment in Manhattan, making good money. I was back in the old neighborhood visiting my parents, and I drove past EB's convenience store. The windows were papered over. A massive "for sale/foreclosure" sign was slapped across the glass. I felt a jolt of excitement. I parked the car and walked into the bodega next door to ask what happened. And guess who was working the counter there? My old coworker, the one who had stayed behind. "Oh my God, OP," he said. "You haven't heard what?" I grinned. "Spill everything." He leaned in, whispering like we were sharing state secrets. It was a bloodbath, absolute instant karma. Apparently, after I left, EB got even worse. He couldn't keep staff, so he started hiring undocumented workers to avoid payroll taxes. He was paying them pennies, thinking he was a genius businessman. Department of Labor raided him, my coworker said. Someone tipped them off. They audited everything. He owed hundreds of thousands in back wages and fines. But that's not even the best part. There's more. His wife. You remember her? The one he treated like a trophy. Well, she found out he was cheating on her with a 20-year-old cashier. She didn't just leave him. She destroyed him in family court. My coworker pulled up a news article on his phone about the local business bust. She had a forensic accountant go through his finances during the divorce, he explained. They found all the hidden cash from the business. The judge was furious. She got the house full custody and massive alimony. He had to liquidate his remaining assets just to pay the legal fees and the government fines. I stood there listening to the details of his ruin. The inheritance his father gave him gone. The empire he built bankrupt. The house he bragged about having a mortgage on at 18 foreclosed. Where is he now? I asked. He moved back in with his parents. My coworker laughed. He's 47 years old, broke divorced and sleeping in his childhood bedroom. I burst out laughing. It was poetic justice. This was the man who called me pathetic for living with my parents at 18 while I was a student. Now he was a middle-aged man living off his elderly parents because his own entitled behavior burned his life to the ground. The original story ends there, but I actually have a small update for you guys because the world is incredibly small. About 6 months ago, I was at my bakery. I own a high-end pastry shop in the city now. We were hiring for a dishwasher position, honest work but hard work. I was in the back office when my manager came in. "Hey, there's a guy here for an interview. He looks a bit rough. Says he has management experience, but he's willing to wash dishes." I walked out to the front wiping flour off my apron. And there he was, EB. He looked terrible. He had aged 20 years in the last 10. His hair was thinning, his suit was cheap and ill-fitting, and he had that desperate look in his eyes that I used to have when I was 18. He didn't recognize me at first. I was just the owner. "I have a lot of experience," he was saying to my manager, his voice humble, lacking all that arrogance from years ago. "I just need a chance. I'm hardworking. I really need the money." I stepped forward. "I'm sorry," I said clearly. "We prioritize treating our staff with respect here. And based on my past experience with you, I don't think you'd be a good cultural fit." He looked up confused. He squinted at me. Then his eyes went wide. The color drained from his face. He recognized me. "OP," he whispered. "It's Chef OP now," I said. "And we pay our dishwashers $22 an hour. But not you. Please leave." He opened his mouth to say something, maybe to beg, maybe to apologize, but he saw the look in my eyes. He turned around and walked out the door, head hanging low. He wanted me to learn that the real world wouldn't coddle me. Well, he was right. The real world chewed him up and spit him out while I rose to the top. Instantly, regret doesn't even begin to cover the look on his face. Don't treat people like garbage on your way up because you never know who you'll have to ask for a job on your way down.